Hi everyone, I'm here with Shireen. We're just making a demo video for the guest speaker series. So the first part of the guest speaker series is to do a virtual interview with the photographer that you've been partnered up with. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna use this as an example. So when you first make the video, just for editing reasons, if you could state your name, your first and last name, and actually if you could also spell your name, that would be really helpful. And then we'll start with a brief bio, and then for the purposes of this example, we'll answer one question. And so I'll start. My name is Rizal Javier. It's spelled R-I-Z-Z as in zebra, H-E-L, last name Javier, J-A-V-I-E-R. And yeah, I'll do my bio. My name is Rizal Javier, and I'm an artist and educator in San Diego, California. I currently teach at San Diego City College and at the Aja Project, and I am a photographer that mainly focuses on culture, home, and identity. And then I'll go ahead and let Shireen introduce herself.
Okay. Um, I'm Shireen Tawfiq. Shireen Shirine, Tawfiq, Towfiq. And I'm like, I'm always really good at doing it, but now I'm like, my arm statement. Well, a brief description of my work is that I make a lot of conceptual art, but I also do a lot of textile work, installation, sculpture, video, performance, photography. So a little bit of like a jack of all trades artist where I try to use whichever medium best fits the concept that I'm working with. A lot of my work recently has to do with the Iranian diaspora and my relation to Iran, and it being this place that I don't really understand, and it's told to me in this kind of imagined and theatrical way. So a lot of my work is influenced by those ideas currently.
Thanks for sharing, Shireen. So a fun fact about Shireen and I is that we've known each other for almost a decade. When I got my first photo, when I got one of my first classes teaching photo, Shireen was one of my students, and that was one of her first semesters as an art student. So that was really unique. Something that I want to specify, because I know that Shireen and I have already made like if you see that we're repeating ourselves, it's because we're getting really used to editing videos like this. And so we do have an editor that's going to be splicing all these cuts together for us. And so if ever at a point you feel like you need to repeat yourself, just go ahead and say it, and our editor will like see you, hear you, and they'll make sure to use the version of how you say it instead. If that didn't make sense, or if that made sense. So yeah, thanks Shireen again for joining me. In Hyperlocal Visions, one of the things I'm really interested in learning about is how people connect their work to the idea of community. And so one of the things that's really important about this guest speaker series for me, like we had mentioned earlier in the book, our book has a really specific set of photographers that this author wants us to know. And in our class, we've already identified that there are a lot of people missing from that book. And so in our our second module, we start with a special curation of Black women photographers, and I think that's great because there were none in that first chapter that we assigned. And so Hyperlocal Visions for me is an opportunity for us to highlight the BIPOC community of San Diego and Tijuana to make them visible to our students. And so yeah, thank you again for joining me for this example and as my TA. And I will start with the first question, which is, how do you feel that your work relates to the idea of community?
Well, I feel like almost all of my work is about community, either if it's like a sculpture that is meant to be used with a person or for a performance, or so much of my work actually has to do with my family and using them in my projects. And so I think a lot about like this immediate community that I have access to, which is my family, and then how that relates to like a bigger picture. So I think about like intergenerational communication, how history gets passed down through generations, like the idea of archive and embodied archive, and how those themes are immediately present in my life, but also how that relates to the world around us and like how we get information and uh, what is like really true or not, and if it's just true to us. I think it'd be really interesting if like in this series we were just like if the artists were changing their backgrounds to like their work maybe for the video to talk about it. I currently only have this one piece in my virtual backgrounds.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, you just made me think what I could try and offer everyone if you're interested is like a crash course in Zoom if you're not super familiar with it. And I can show you how to change and utilize the virtual background function and talk about other presentation methods if you'd like to use the share screen to like show photographs or websites or any kind of media during the duration of your interview.
I know. I don't know if I should like really talk in depth or not.
It's just an example. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is just an example. And we could always, I know I talked to, thanks again, Shireen, for that example. So basically in this interview, you have the option to, well, we'll talk about like questions that are fixed throughout the whole guest speaker series. And then if you want to add some questions, I'm cool with that. Also, again, there's an opportunity for you to share examples via share screen or virtual background. And so I'm just going to share screen really quick. So for example, like as Shireen was talking, I could be like scrolling through her website. If there's any B-roll that you'd like for us to add in your video, you could give it to me raw and I could have our editor work on it. But yeah, this is just an opportunity to also be a little bit more interactive when you are sharing the work. Cool. See, there's like video here too. So feel free to share any video clips or any kind of documentation of your work. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good example. And if you are feeling like you have more questions, I could answer them in our meeting. So thank you everyone for joining us. And I'm really excited to bring this lecture series to my students.